Namaste and welcome to another digital exclusive here on the News18 network. And with me today is the editor English for Op India, Nirwa Mehta. Nirwa, hi. Let's get straight to the point. Now, the Op India, that means your platform, has taken a very clear position over the recent furor over the comments made by Nupur Sharma. But what caught my attention is that there was a piece that was done on your website which said that there was a concerted effort to try and make this an international issue and try and create an atmosphere where all of India, a nation that represents 20% of the world's population, a nation of 1.3 billion people, its interests were to be compromised. And it happened with the very nations which are trying to sermonize India about rights, religious freedom, rights of minorities, etc. So take us through the entire process.
Right. So actually, we had written a report couple of days before the Middle Eastern countries joined hands on the issue. Washington Post columnist Rana Ayub's brother Arif Ayub had and a couple of other prominent personalities on social media. They had actually been tagging the Middle Eastern countries and triggering them to stop oil to India. And over the so-called violation of Muslim rights in India. So obviously that was there. We had done a report on that. Then after the Middle Eastern countries condemned and the statements were issued, a Twitter user, which is an investigative account, the Hawkeye, they came up with this investigation where they had found how it originally started. The entire Arabic trends and hashtags that started 4-5 days prior to the actual statements that were issued. And one of the initial accounts to tweet was Turkey-based Islamic organization. They started the hashtag initially, and then they were joined by others. They were joined by Indians as well, where including so-called fact checkers like Mohammed Zubair, who was the initial to dog whistle against Nupur when the Times Now clip had come out. So obviously, it was all coordinated. Then not only that, they actually cheered when the other Middle Eastern countries were condemning and issuing statements against India. These people were actually cheering for the whole thing. After a couple of days, when someone else had also, when some other country may have not yet issued a condemnation, they would tag their representatives and ask them that why have you not condemned yet? So that obviously it shows that it was very well planned, and they wanted to embarrass India on an international platform, because obviously they are choosing the Ummah over the nation. That their religious feelings were hurt so bad that they would not mind embarrassing or insulting India on an international platform like this, getting the government to bend over and say basically embarrass India.
So they turned to the Islamic nations because they thought that as Muslims they would get support from these Islamic nations.
They have been getting support. A lot of them have. OIC, for example, has always had has always had pro-Pakistan stand when it came to issues like Kashmir, for example. They've always they've always sided with Pakistan and other countries. So obviously, there have been times where they have always, in fact, even during this anti-CA protests and other issues, they have been targeting specifically Indians in the Middle East. A lot of them had been fired from their jobs because they did not really oppose the CA, or they probably called out their opposition. So things went bad even 2 years back. The same set of people had been triggering Indians abroad and targeting the Indians in Gulf. Even back then, there have been stories where after the CA protest and all, some Ganesh idol in a supermarket in one of the Middle Eastern countries was broken. So obviously things have been like that since a couple of years now. So
But
yeah.
these people you are saying who started it, you said that this is an organization which is based in Turkey, and that's what your article said, that it quoted this investigative, handle on Twitter, which said that this was inspired by the Muslim Brotherhood. So, but your article also said, and even the investigator also said that they had Indian inputs. They had somebody who's
It
monitoring
seemed
it
like,
in India very
see,
closely.
yeah. If you see the wordings and everything, the screenshots and the things that were shared on with those Arabic hashtags, there was the burqa, the hijab controversy from Karnataka that was in the tweets. So obviously, someone has been spending considerable time tracking the updates in India, or has been getting the considerable feedback from India on the points, the key points, or the toolkit rather, on what all issues they need to talk about. If you see, there are a lot of Islamic charity funds advertisements that come on YouTube sometimes. If you go to their websites, they actually specifically tell you certain Twitter handles to follow. One of them is obviously Rana Ayub and Mohammed Zubair, who are asked, they ask them to follow these particular handles to know what is happening. So obviously, it's a uh, they want they have been following the updates very, very closely. Uh,
See,
if you say, see,
I'm saying, say, Rana Ayub or Mohammed Zubair or whoever these people are, they're all Indian citizens. They may have a political bone to pick with. They may disagree with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They may disagree with the BJP. But why would they want to belittle India? Do these people and such other entities, or even this entire group, did they take the same kind of umbrage when the Al Qaeda issues a threat letter and again quotes the Prophet and says he foretold Ghazwa Hind?
see, why they do this, I think they would be the better people to answer, because obviously they have made their choice very, very clear. What is surprising is that they sometimes also fact check the terror threat letters. So it's unfortunate that we have come to a time where the so-called fact checkers, they fact check threat letters ki, no, this has a typo here, so this cannot be terrorist. They have terrorists on hotlines where they call, acha, have you issued this threat letter? They actually did a fact check that this is not one of the recent ones where uh, Kashmir based, after the recent last month or month before, when the Kashmiri Hindus were getting threats and all. So when a letter was issued, these people, they fact checked it. Ki, nahi, this has a typo and this is not the language they use. And our sources confirmed was falana falana their spokesperson. So apparently they have terrorists on hotlines to confirm whether this is their threat letter or not. The other day, someone was telling me, no, the Al Qaeda letter, that the Al Qaeda threat that we have received is not the original Al Qaeda. It is a branch of that Al Qaeda. So obviously, and obviously, no one mentions that how Qatar, one of the main countries to kick up the storm, it has also been accused of actually funding Al Qaeda. And it has hosted the Taliban. One of their offices was in Doha. So nobody questions that. And
No, but why? No, but why? See, if they are equanimous people, if they are people who are taking the larger interest of India, if they are people who bat for religious freedom, and if they are worried that Muslims are being portrayed in the wrong light deliberately, and they are trying to call out Islamophobia, then they should be the first to turn around and call out such entities who want to destroy a nation, who want to use children as suicide bombs, who quote the Prophet saying he was the one who foretold, and they say it's there in the Hadith, and they tend to mention a Hadith. Whether weak or strong is again open to interpretation. But when they quote and misquote like this, shouldn't they take umbrage
they should be the
if they
better
really
people to
are
answer.
equanimous?
Yeah, because see, none of them have also condemned the fact that people have been mocking the shivling that has been found in the Wuzu Khana at the Gyanvapi complex, the disputed structure that Gyanvapi complex is. Also, some people refer to it as the Gyanvapi Masjid. Uh, the Wuzu Khana is where they actually cleanse their hands and feet, and they gargle and throw, to cleanse before they offer the namaz. So uh, they knew that the shivling has been there. They knew that what significance it holds. Despite that, people have been cleaning their dirty hands and feet there. And after the discovery, they have been joking about the shivling, calling it the fountain, and then making more memes regarding it. And none of them gets any kind of condemnation, because only one religion can get hurt in the country, in a secular nation that India is. Hindus have no right to get their religious
No,
feelings offended.
let us say that matter is subjudice. There are two parties to this. There are two people who believe. There will be those who strongly believe it is a shivling. There are those who strongly believe that it is a fountain, and the matter is subjudice. Let's say it's the issue of Gyanwali. But when there are people who are mocking Shiva, when there are people who are mocking the shivling, those who claim themselves to be secular, those who say that they are not bigoted, that they are for equanimity, how many of them have actually stood up and said, condemn this also? How dare you mock a shivling?
No, they have actually mocked. They have joined in the jokes. There are the TMC MPs have been joining in the jokes. Mahua Moitra, for example, she has been making the shivling jokes. OIC has been making, certain statements which are not very palatable. A lot of them have been. There are so many so-called journalists also who have been making the shivling jokes because it's easy. Uh, Again, shivling jokes. You probably people may protest and all. Nobody gives a call for, um, beheading. Uh, which is actually encouraged in the other situations, and uh, which also is not condemned, which is even more shocking, that all the threats of beheading Nupur has been getting, the threats she has been getting, nobody is even condemning it, because the scriptures allow it,
No. Now,
unfortunately.
whether the scriptures allow it or not, does their conscience allow the fact that they are not taking a position? When they say two wrongs don't make a right. So then, for somebody who has withdrawn her comment, for somebody who has expressed regret, for somebody who has also been suspended from the party, and a clear message has been given to the party and its spokespersons, why is it that they are not willing to forgive? Let me ask you a larger question. Have you analyzed this and seen what was it that put India in a compromising position? How did these nations try to compromise India's interests? Can one comment decide India's interest?
No, so it has to be multiple things. I on a personal level don't think it is just this one statement that triggered. It has to be a larger conspiracy behind it, because there has been a constant hounding. There are some certain countries, certain communities have not been happy with a lot of things, including the election of Prime Minister Modi in the 2014 elections as well as the 19 elections. Then there has been the Ram Janmabhoomi verdict. There has been the CAA that has been come, which gives fast track citizenship to persecuted minorities in the neighboring Islamic countries. So a lot of things have been. It has snowballed since a long, long time. Um, the Ram Janmabhoomi verdict has been one of the major point of concerns. They lot of people are still unhappy. They still wish, rather, that this wouldn't have happened. So obviously, it's a culmination of a lot of things, which eventually led to this. And now we have the Al Qaeda threat, because some fact checkers, they decided to trigger a couple of Islamists who called for beheading of a leader of the political party. So yeah.
No, there will always be elements who are radical. My question is, why would you? And there will be those who will want to protect the interests of a particular community. It is all accorded. You have the right. So you take a particular position as a platform, as a journalist. There are others who take different positions, but they have to be based on facts. The other aspect is that personal interest, community interest cannot supersede or cannot compromise country interest. You are saying that there are people who actually said, stop selling oil to India, stop doing
Yeah.
trade with India. But when you make a claim like that, aren't you guilty of hurting India's interests? How is that beneficial? Aren't you, cutting your
See,
own nose to spite your face?
yeah, because that's how the certain communities they believe. They for them it's the ummah, the community feeling is above nation. When it comes to certain things, they are not Indians. They have a lot of these people, influential people, is also. They will always refer to their identity as the religious identity first before their identity as an Indian. So for them, the community which is suddenly supporting them against the political leadership they hate is their favorite, um, their favorite country currently. So
But these nations are fighting amongst themselves. The Shia
they
nations
are
are
fighting
fighting
among
amongst the
themselves.
Sunni nations. There are more wars in this region which call themselves the OIC or bulk of the OIC. This is the Khadi region or the Gulf region. There are more wars and more fights there. More atrocities are there.
But
So
that's all free hit. That doesn't matter to them. They will never raise their voice against the Chinese treatment of the Uyghurs either. They will never raise their voice against the treatment of Ahmadiyas, for example, in Pakistan, because for them they are the lesser Muslims. In fact, that's what Pakistanis also believe, which is why Ahmadiyas are also persecuted minorities in Pakistan. One of the concerns during the anti-CAA protests or so-called protests, which eventually turned violent and a riot, they said that why not the Ahmadiyya Muslims? Because first of all, if the CAA is about the persecuted minorities, so Ahmadiyyas are Muslims. Muslims in a Muslim country, they are not minorities, but suddenly they are minorities when it comes to anti-CAA protest. So they are very confused on those aspects, and they will never be siding for that as either. You will never see them fight, raise their voice on the Chinese treatment of the Uyghurs. Nothing like that. No Shia Sunni. Recently there is a movie which has triggered a couple of protests in the UK. Uh, it's suddenly see it's all very scary because you never know what you speak on air. There is a bounty on your head the next day. So it's very one has to be really careful on what one says these days. And this only happens in particular when you are talking about a particular community. It's little terrifying sometimes.
no,
So
but why are these entities not calling for a bounty on the Al Qaeda for quoting the Prophet, and that too against their own country?
well, they also did not call out Muhammad Zubair for actually repeating. So blasphemy is also when you repeat a blasphemous statement. So when he shares an alleged blasphemous statement by Nupur, he is also committing blasphemy in the technical terms, but no bounty on his head.
See, my agenda is not against any particular individual. My
Ha,
questions are not
nobody's
against
agenda
people.
is anybody.
No, no, no,
It's
no. I'm also saying, I'm saying these people have the right to pick up issues and perhaps they want to defend and they can have politically, they can have an opposition. But are they equanimous in their position for the country? Are they
no.
taking the same position as an Indian citizen? Are they putting the country first?
It does not seem so,
See,
honestly.
the prime minister and this government, much against the opinion of a lot of people on social media, and perhaps some people in your own organization who have tweeted about it and spoken about it, much against that, chose the safety well-being of 8 million Indians in the Gulf region and 1.3 billion Indians as India's interests, which needs to work with these nations, above the spoke above the stated statement and the comment made by their national spokesperson. They not only called them out, they suspended them, and it was a very hard-worded letter against both Naveen Jindal and Nupur Sharma. And both these people were asked to withdraw their comment and express regret. So it's a very strong call that has been taken because many would turn around and say, you are not defending your own party people. But clearly, the Prime Minister has put the country first. So is that also a tough act to follow? Are these people
It
putting
is
country first?
they're clearly not putting the country first. They've been egging the Middle Eastern countries to actually take action against the Indians. How is that putting the country first? You've obviously put your religion, your faith, and your community above the nation. when you are tagging Middle Eastern countries, the ambassadors in other countries, um, their representatives in India, and asking them to condemn so and so things and how these things are happening, and to cut off the oil supply, and that's actually very shocking that this is how this is happening. They've come down to this, that they've chosen to side with to put Indians' lives at risk. And they're not even condemning the Al Qaeda threat. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow they end up mocking it. Nothing like that happened, and they'll probably call it another fake pamphlet, or created by the BJP to divert the attention, because that is one of their favorite
So,
things to say.
so cover fire. My final question, Nirva, as we wind this up, let me ask you this. Don't you find this ironical that India is the second largest population of Muslims in the world? And then there are people who claim to be staunch Indians who are going ahead and telling the world that Muslims are unsafe in India.
Yeah. See, I think I personally feel that about 80% of people in India across religious lines, all they want to do is just earn a peaceful living. Is
Yes.
the 1% top tier, which is very nicely sitting in their air conditioned rooms, either in India or taking the business class flights elsewhere, and doing armchair journalism, triggering the rest of them remaining, who tend to get radical and extremist views, and that makes the life of the rest of the 80-85% really really difficult. uh,
Yeah.
and it's just unfortunate.
So that means these people don't represent, because very clearly you and me know very very well that this is not India and these are not Indians. In the sense, all Indians cannot be painted in the same hue as this particular 1%, 1.5%. Not all. You can't say
True.
Muslims across the country are radical. You can't say Muslims across the country are in danger. Muslims across the country are unsafe. If Muslims across the country were unsafe, we wouldn't be celebrating Anika Zareen the way she has, what she has done, winning laurels for our country. There are so many people who are doing their bit for the country because they're putting the country first and their passion first, and this country is giving them opportunity. And this is across caste, creed, community. Any Indian who wants to do something for India got the opportunity. So then who's going to call out this 1%? And why should this 1% be allowed to set the narrative that could put India in a compromising position?
It is also because the certain anti-India, elements are also taking benefit of the situation. They give them the platforms. There are certain racist publications, international publications, which have very, very clearly disliked India since a long, long time. They give them platforms. They obviously, none of them suddenly, when someone is being investigated for their alleged financial fraud, suddenly it becomes their religion that she's being hounded because of her faith. Uh, it's a very very sad situation to be in, that any kind of investigation against someone, there is either a political or a religious angle to it, because somehow no one is doing it out of their own free will. So yeah, I think it's just a mess, but I hope that someday better sense prevails, and we actually are not blown into pieces by terror organizations.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. India is a far more robust country, and we've seen worst amount of terror attacks, and we've come through that together as a nation. And clearly, our security apparatus is far robust. And I think the ordinary Indian, the 85%, the larger number of people who want peace, who want a prosperous India, will come together and ensure that this 1% and their own, puppets don't succeed in their machinations. So here's to that, and let's hope
Hopefully.
that happens. Thank you very much, Nirva. Wonderful having a conversation with you. Thank you.